What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, the new Bruce Springsteen musical biopic drama film from Scott Cooper, starring Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen, also featuring Jeremy Strong as Springsteen's longtime manager, John Landau. Deliver Me From Nowhere, of course, this is the latest in the long recent history of music biopic films. We've talked about them a lot because they, in and of themselves, are a genre. Within just the last year, of course, we had the really strong hit that was A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan Timothy Chalamet film. We also had the noted non-hit that was the Robbie Williams Better Man film. That was quite ambitious in its own regard. And of course, next year we have the oft-delayed, polarizing at best Michael Jackson biopic film still to come from Antoine Fuqua. Last year we also had the Amy Winehouse biopic Back to Black. This is a common thing because biopics for musicians are like an IP in and of themselves, it seems at this point. And doing the Bruce Springsteen biopic makes a lot of sense. And I think most people were attracted, at least interested in this as much as you can be for these type of movies, because of course it's starring Jeremy Allen White. And Jeremy Allen White, of course, long career and Shameless aside, with that Bear breakout on FX, has started to move into film roles. And he had a strong supporting role in The Iron Claw a few years ago, but now here he is as a leading man in a film playing Bruce Springsteen. Does White look a lot like young Bruce did as a 30-year-old in the 80s? Not really. But I think, with the costume design, with the atmosphere, it's convincing enough. And when Jeremy Allen White is allowed to sing in this movie, which is not as often as you might expect, he actually sounds really great and very convincing as a Bruce, copycat. That being said, Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere is very disappointing because the early promise of its structure immediately falls away, highlighting a specific point in time versus doing the entire come up and rise to fame in a biopic film. Good choice. Having the characters' daddy issues rear their ugly head throughout the entire runtime of the film with frequent black and white childhood flashbacks, very bad. Ultimately, the script is just very poor. There's just not enough there. We have lots of longing wide shots of Bruce looking out while music is playing, trying to communicate his early struggles and realization of his struggles with depression, but there's just not enough substance to what's being portrayed on screen, and the film should just be a lot more interesting and entertaining than it ends up being. Not that many music scenes. There's one really great recording in the studio type scene, hallmark of these type of films. It's a quiet and reserved film, and it just should be, I think, a lot more engaging. And of course, when you think about what this is specifically talking about, Bruce Springsteen has found some success touring with the E Street Band, but has not yet achieved the global superstardom that would soon follow off the success of songs like Born in the USA. This is the time where he really goes against all convention and wisdom to record his album Nebraska. Think of A Complete Unknown telling the story of Bob Dylan going electric. Well, Deliver Me From Nowhere is attempting to tell the story of Bruce Springsteen going folk. And while I enjoyed the, scenes between Jeremy Strong's Landau and David Krumholtz, the executive at Columbia Records, and even Landau's conversations on the phone with Jimmy Iovine, playing himself at that, I enjoyed those conversations about this is not commercial and not doing press and not doing a tour in support of the album is wild. And I think that there's potential with those types of scenes and into highlighting the seemingly confusing logic behind doing something like this. I just don't think the movie is very convincing in communicating why Bruce needs to make these songs now, these dark and dour songs at a time when he's on the brink of, achieving this crazy fame. Bruce is just continuing to talk about needing to make the music the way it is and wanting to capture the way it sounds in the recording that he does on inferior equipment in a rental home in New Jersey, his native state. Yet it's just a lot of, I think, telling, not showing. I enjoyed the scene in the studio where he's basically arguing and getting very frustrated with the engineers, one of which is played by Mark Maron, about how he needs it to be the way it was, and they have to just do what it takes to put out the album the way he wants to make it. And very familiar cliches and tropes about, the artistic genius and the will of the artist and things like that. I think there's just not enough of that, right? The Born in the USA session sounds great, right? The way like the Bohemian Rhapsody, Another One Bites the Dust creation scene works in that film, right? Like that scene is great, really fun. I think it's just very thin elsewhere, and a big part of the movie is supposed to be about Bruce's inability to connect and struggling to manage his increasing fame, and he has an awareness of what's happening to him, but he just can't really grapple it and certainly cannot articulate it. And when you're watching a movie with a character who can't really articulate how he's feeling and what he's thinking, that the script needs to find a way to carry that, and it just doesn't. And Odessa Young, I think, does her best playing this composite character of various girlfriends and women in Bruce's life. That character, though, it's a very one-sided relationship to how it works. Similarly, there's another female character in the movie played by Grace Gummer. Nice to see her, but she's playing John Landau's wife, and literally all she is there in the movie to do is listen to Landau talk and express this form of expository plot thinking to the audience. Like, the scenes are rough. Stephen Graham plays Bruce Springsteen's father, both in the flashbacks and also in present day. Yes, we meet him later in present time. And yeah, I mean, I think those scenes, they just really beat you over the head. I was really, really disinterested in all of those scenes for the most part, because it's not like they're giving you anything below the surface. And the present day plotting is just so reserved the entire time. I just, I'm not a big Bruce fan. I will admit it, especially the Nebraska style of tune. It's not my thing. They make reference to Glory Days later on. I definitely like that song more. But I just want the movie to, communicate its character as well. And I just don't think it really does. And again, it has nothing to do with the performances. I like White. I think White's doing his best. The script just isn't really there. His singing is great when you see it. It's really just in the beginning, though. Strong, it's a performance that's kind of similar to how he did Roy Cohn in The Apprentice last year. A little bit of a different spin of the dial for that. But Strong, I think, him as a performer, his specific neuroses, they come across well, and I like the conversations he has. He's trying his best to manage Bruce, who's increasingly harder and harder to wrangle for reasons that are unclear to everyone around him. And right when I think the movie is gonna take a turn for the better, you have this scene where Bruce finally agrees to speak to a therapist of some kind and talk about how he's feeling. And he just breaks down into tears. And it's a great moment of physical acting and emotional acting from Jeremy Allen White. And then that scene fades to black and some music plays. He doesn't talk. There is none of that expression. The feeling is still never expressed to us. And it's not like I need the movie or want the movie to end in a super neat way. That's not how people that experience depression usually go through life. That's fine. But I just found it pretty unfulfilling. And again, I respect that it was talking about a specific period of time, the creation of Nebraska. This is based off a book. This is part of Bruce's life, nonetheless. Also, seemingly being much more interested in Bruce's internal struggles at the time, more so than the actual nuts and bolts of creating the album. All that's good on paper. I just don't think the execution is there. But I would still take a movie like this, swinging and missing, over stuff that's just pretty poor dreck, like Back to Black, for example. So it is what it is. I don't think it's going to be much of an Oscar contender, despite our initial suspicion. When we knew about this movie coming out, hot off the heels of A Complete Unknown, definitely made sense to think about the movie in that way. But I just don't think the film works well enough to make into Best Picture for sure. And just given the competition, I don't think Jeremy Allen White's going to get through with an acting nomination either. And Strong, he's just not quite as flashy this time around for a supporting nom either. So yeah, it's just not all the way there. It is what it is. Let me know, though, what'd you think of Deliver Me From Nowhere? Did you like this Bruce Springsteen movie? What did you or did you not like about it? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.